You know, in the kind of messy, unpredictable world we all live in, the old playbook for business strategy, it's just not cutting it anymore. That's the big idea from authors Ikujiro Nonaka and Hirotaka Takeuchi. They argue that just relying on data and analysis, well, it's not enough. They think it's time we rethink strategy entirely. And that starts not with the brain, but with the soul.
Just think about that for a second. Your company could have the most amazing forecasting tools, the most brilliant analysts on the planet. But you know what? The authors make a great point. All the AI in the world couldn't have predicted the COVID-19 pandemic. We live in an era of, as they call them, unknown unknowns. And when that's your reality, a strategy that's built only on what's happened in the past is, well, it's incredibly fragile. And that fragility, it really gets to the heart of the problem. Our business world has completely changed, but our models for strategy, they haven't really kept up. It's like we're trying to navigate this brand new, wild landscape with some really old maps. And the authors use some pretty powerful words to describe this reality: discontinuity, flux, complexity. It's a world where the old rules are breaking down, where everything feels connected and porous, and things are just changing at this dizzying speed. This is not some stable, predictable machine we're working with. It's chaotic. And that chaos, it demands a totally different way of thinking. So, what's the answer? Well, it all starts with a huge shift in perspective. Instead of seeing a company as this cold, data-crunching machine, the authors want us to see it as a living organism. And just like any living thing, to really survive and thrive, it needs more than just fuel. It needs a purpose, a real moral reason to even exist. And this idea of a moral purpose brings us right to the core of their argument, this really important distinction between a company's brain and its soul. This is where they say strategy finds its real depth and, maybe more importantly, its direction. Okay, what's so interesting here is how clear this distinction is. The brain is everything we normally think of as strategy, right? The analysis, the big data, the complex scenarios. It's all about the how. But the soul, that's the why. It's about your purpose, your values, the simple truths that guide everything you do. And the authors are emphatic about this. Real, lasting strategy has to start with the soul. And look, this isn't just some abstract academic theory. Take this quote from Satya Nadella. He directly tied rediscovering Microsoft's soul, its core purpose, to actually getting its strategy right. That new focus on empowering every person and organization on the planet, that became the North Star that guided the company's incredible turnaround. And Mark Benioff, the co-founder of Salesforce, he just doubles down on this. He makes it clear this isn't just about what you're telling your own employees, your customers, your partners, your investors. They're all asking the same question. People today want to work with and buy from companies that have a clear moral compass. So how do you actually do this? How do you cultivate a soul for your company? Well, it's not about writing a fancy mission statement and sticking it on the wall. It's about building purpose into the very fabric of your daily work. And the authors give us 6 key practices to make that happen. And here they are. You've got coping with complexity, adapting to change, embracing this idea of duality, empathizing, telling stories, and living with nature. Now, these aren't one-and-done initiatives. The whole idea is that you practice them habitually, getting a little better every day until strategy stops being a document and becomes a true way of life. Let's dig into what each one of these looks like. All right, the first practice is coping with complexity. And the story of the Honda Jet is a perfect example. The big breakthrough for this incredibly complex airplane came from a moment of pure intuition, a simple sketch on the back of a calendar. But what kept the designer, Michimasa Fujino, going for decades? It was his connection to the company's soul, Honda's 3 joys. That deep sense of purpose is what fueled the perseverance he needed to solve all those huge technical challenges. The second practice is all about adapting to change, and yeah, we're back to Microsoft. By grounding the company in a purpose that was bigger than just protecting the Windows monopoly, Nadella gave it the freedom to adapt. He could see the future was in cloud and AI, and he made these massive bets that paid off beautifully, all because the strategy was being guided by a flexible purpose, not a rigid defensive market position. Now, practice number 3 is super interesting. It's to embrace dynamic duality. And Toyota is a masterclass in this. They basically live in a state of contradiction. They're incredibly frugal day to day, but they'll spend a fortune on key events. They seem hierarchical, but they give employees the freedom to push back against their bosses. This ability to be 2 opposite things at once is what makes them so incredibly resilient and adaptive. Practice 4 is about empathy. And wow, this example is powerful. At the pharmaceutical company Eisai, all 10,000 employees spend time with actual patients every year. And this isn't for market research. It's to build deep, genuine empathy. That shared human experience becomes the motivation. It becomes the soul that drives everyone's work.
The fifth practice is all about telling compelling stories. Think about Fujifilm. When their core business of photographic film was literally vanishing, the CEO didn't just send out a memo with new directives. He told a new story. He took this famous philosophical quote and reinterpreted it to signal a new beginning, not an end. That narrative of transformation gave the entire company a shared vision to rally around as they completely reinvented themselves. It's an amazing story. And the final practice is to live with nature. This beautiful story from an oyster farmer in Japan illustrates it perfectly. After a red tide basically destroyed his oyster beds, he realized the problem didn't start in the ocean. It started upstream in the mountains. So he and the other fishermen started planting trees, guided by this simple piece of wisdom that the forest is the lover of the sea. It's such a profound lesson about seeing our businesses as part of a much larger interconnected system. So when you bring all 6 of these practices together, you start to see what they're getting at, right? Strategy stops being some document you pull out once a quarter. It becomes the very culture of the company, a whole new way of life that you practice every single day. So what's the bottom line here? It really comes down to these 4 lessons. A soulful strategy is driven by people and their values. It's rooted in practical wisdom, what you learn from actually doing things, not just abstract data. It's about actively creating the future you want through powerful stories. And maybe most importantly, it's about choosing a future that creates value for everyone, for all of society, not just for the company itself. And that really leaves us with this final challenging question. I want you to think about your own organization, your own work. Is your strategy just a static plan, something sitting in a PowerPoint deck? Or is it a living, breathing philosophy that guides what you and your team do every single day? The answer to that, as the author suggests, might just define your future.